which make up Central Africa, southern Rhodesia, which has a white population of 150,000, northern Rhodesia with 45,000 white people and important copper mines, and Nyasaland with 5,000 white people. The object would be to speed development by pooling resources. Most advanced of the three is southern Rhodesia, which is a self-governing colony with its capital at Salisbury. Southern Rhodesia is developing rapidly, means to Central Africa.
And if we are to create a strong, virile, progressive British state in that very large area of Africa, then a federation is the only solution. It's a great and a stimulating.
Over the Victoria Falls lies northern Rhodesia, a British protectorate opened up by British pioneering and containing an African population of 2 millions. It's one of the territories concerned in federation, that plan for the development of an area which, in the opinion of its sponsors, is linked with the prospects of a true partnership of races in Central Africa. The famous copper belt of northern Rhodesia is one of the world's biggest production centers of that important metal, employing both African and European labor. Other industries have grown up as a result of the development of the copper mines, such as this cement works at Chilanga. Northern Rhodesia is developing fast, and cement has become of prime importance for building and road making. This is an illustration of the type of industry which federationists are eager to see extended in the Rhodesias.
Only a few hours after their return from Scotland to see Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret off on their flight to southern Rhodesia. Standing beside the comet, the royal traveller said goodbye to Mr. Oliver Littleton, Colonial Secretary, Sir Productions. Now a final flash from the royal tour, a ceremonial parade by the Rhodesian African Rifles, to whom Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother presented new colours. The smartness of the march past was well in keeping with this Royal Rhodesian event.
It's always nice to hear of someone striking it rich, and that's what's just happened to Mr. Bill Freeman, a gold prospector. But it isn't gold he's discovered in some old caves on his land near Lusaka in northern Rhodesia. Exploring underground in these limestone caves, he found they were inhabited by tens of thousands of bats. At once he realized he was standing on a centuries-old deposit of bat guano, one of the finest fertilizers in existence and worth even more than gold. All he has to do now is to have it shoveled into sacks and brought to the surface. An ingenious labor-saving device has been worked out for this job. After the stuff has been bagged, the men below give the word, and the rest is easy.
The Zambezi, running wild and quite beyond control, is a frightening sight. Since then, however, the level has fallen. Now here's a tip from Rhodesia, where it's quite the fashion to spend weekends prospecting for uranium. It's advisable to take your Geiger counter with you to test for radioactivity, and you might as well chuck in a drill or two when you're packing the sandwiches. The rest is simple. Just collect samples of the right sort of uranium-bearing rock, there's tons of the stuff to be had, and stake your claim. With luck, there'll be no need to go back to work on Monday. Now here's...
She was off on a visit to the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. After private farewells aboard the BOAC Britannia, the royal party stayed to wave as the aircraft prepared for its takeoff. The Queen Mother, who is spending 2 weeks in the Federation, faced a busy program.
Here, where the Queen Mother was given a warm welcome to the Federation. Her Majesty, commenting on the wonderful flight she'd enjoyed in the Boac Britannia, described it as simply marvellous. As she drove into Salisbury, thousands of Europeans and Africans waved and cheered their welcome. Her Majesty is no stranger to the Federation. This is her third visit. Her Majesty, commenting on the wonderful flight she'd enjoyed in the Boac Britannia, described it as simply marvellous. As she drove into Salisbury, thousands of Europeans and Africans waved and cheered their welcome. Her Majesty is no stranger to the Federation. This is her third visit.
When going down a mine, wear what the miners wear. That was evidently Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother's plan when she descended over 1,400 feet into the Roan Antelope copper mine in northern Rhodesia. Her Majesty spent some time down below, watching the operations and talking with the men on the job. Just one engagement, though indeed quite an unusual one, during the Queen Mother's tour of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. A very busy tour, with her visit to the Copper Belt certainly one of the highlights.
South Africa, and Mr. Macmillan must have been impressed by the vast plant at the Nkana mine. Industry needs power, and the Copper Belt obtains a lot of it from the Zambezi, tamed at last by the Kariba Dam. Britain's Prime Minister was seeing one of the most impressive sights in Africa, the man-made answer to the Victoria Falls, the harnessing of unlimited power for what is potentially one of the richest countries in the world. If all the political currents can be reconciled as efficiently as the Zambezi, the future
Reception had been prepared for him by several hundred Africans. It wasn't merely a question of banners and slogans. The crowd, which had assembled quietly enough, now tried to push past the police cordon. Shouting, "Freedom," and "We want Banda now, give us Banda," the demonstrators almost got out of hand. The police had to take firm action, and some reports say they were too rough.
The richest deposits in the world, averaging up to 50% metal content as to 25% elsewhere, the mine produces about 1,200 tons of lead and 2,500 tons of zinc per month. The transformation of the ore is a fascinating one, as here the flotation process of separating zinc sulfide from lead sulfide takes place, with the lead finally being channeled away to the left and the zinc to the right. Later, the dried zinc sulfide is peeled from filter drums like icing from a cake, and the giant cathodes are lifted from the electrolytic tanks prior to having the processed zinc sheet stripped from them. Zinc ingots, too, are produced like loaves of bread as the molten metal is poured into the molds. The Governor-General of the Federation, Lord Dalhousie, was immensely interested in the various processes as he made a recent shirt-sleeved tour of the mine. Lord Dalhousie was shown a model of a new plant, part of a £4.5 million project, which will be capable of treating portions of the ore not previously amenable to processing. The new plant will place Broken Hill's major industry in the front rank of world lead and zinc producers and prove a worthy contribution to the Federation's economy.
A new constitution to unite all Rhodesians within a Rhodesian republic. That's the proposal of Mr. Ian Smith's ruling party. It inevitably guarantees white domination in the country and virtually rules out all prospects of a settlement with Britain. For the black Africans next door, particularly President Kaunda of Zambia, the situation has literally brought weeping and gnashing of teeth. Although outwardly urbane and smiling at this Downing Street reception, President Kaunda expects the worst.
He says Britain should break the deadlock by dropping paratroops into Rhodesia. He also seeks British missiles, and he foresees a bloodbath in southern Africa which could make Vietnam look like child's play.